Have you ever wondered why, after years of love, commitment, and shared memories, some marriages start to crumble? Why does the bond that once felt unbreakable begin to fade, and what can be done to fix it? If you've ever questioned the complexities of long-term relationships or wondered what happens when the love between partners starts to feel distant, this video is for you. In this powerful story, we explore the emotional journey of Anna, a woman who, after decades of marriage, finds herself questioning the very foundation of her relationship. This isn't just about one woman's struggle. It's a reflection of the emotional challenges many women face as they grow older in their marriages. We'll delve into the reasons why these feelings of resentment and disconnection often arise, and how the dynamics of a relationship can change as time passes. Stay tuned until the end as we uncover the hidden factors that affect long-term marriages, like unequal responsibilities and the personal transformations that come with aging. We'll also discuss the importance of communication, understanding, and willingness to grow together. Whether you're married or in a long-term relationship, these insights might just help you strengthen your bond, rediscover the love that once brought you together, and avoid the common pitfalls many couples face as they age. Don't miss out. This could be the turning point that changes the way you view relationships forever. If you are not subscribed, I recommend subscribing and activating the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support means a lot to me, and if you enjoyed this video, you can help me continue spreading the valuable lessons by liking and sharing it. Part 1. The Story of Anna. The reasons behind Anna's anguish are heartbreakingly practical yet emotionally overwhelming. Anna, now 63, has spent the last 40 years tethered to a marriage that once bloomed with love and promise. Her husband, Juan, was once the center of her world. They laughed together, built a home, and raised children, all while holding on to the belief that their bond would withstand the test of time. But as Anna crossed the milestone of 60, her world began to shift. The man she once adored, who made her heart race and her soul feel alive, now seems like a stranger occupying her space, a stranger whose every habit grates on her nerves like a relentless storm. What changed? At first, Anna couldn't quite pinpoint it. She had tolerated Juan's flaws for decades, convincing herself that love was about acceptance and sacrifice. When she was younger, she could shrug off his rough edges, brushing aside his insensitivity with the hope that things would get better. But now, every small action, every careless word feels like a dagger to her spirit. Even the simple act of seeing him sitting across the room fills her with such irritation that she wishes she could vanish from his sight, or that he could vanish from hers. This growing resentment weighs heavily on Anna's heart, seeping into every corner of her life. She finds herself perpetually irritable, her patience unraveling thread by thread. Her once vivid smile has dimmed, replaced by a cloud of sadness that refuses to lift. Depression has taken root, and she relies on medication to dull the sharp edges of her despair. Quietly, in the depths of her soul, Anna yearns to escape. She dreams of freedom, of a life where she no longer has to bear the suffocating weight of Juan's presence. If she could leave without scandal, she would gladly walk away, even leaving behind all her worldly possessions. But at 63, the thought of divorce feels impossible. Anna fears the judgment of her community and the whispers and ridicule that would inevitably follow. Worse, she fears for her children, now successful professionals with promising careers. What would people say if their mother shattered the image of their family? The idea of becoming the topic of neighborhood gossip terrifies her into silence. So Anna swallows her unhappiness, burying her pain deep within her chest, where it festers. Even when she musters the courage to consider telling Juan, the words never leave her lips. She spends countless sleepless nights asking herself why her resentment burns so fiercely. How did it come to this, that even the sound of his footsteps could steal her appetite and churn her stomach? Juan, for his part, has remained unchanged in the ways that matter most. From the day they married, he has been a rough and indifferent man. While he always handed over his paycheck for Anna to manage, believing he'd fulfilled his duty, he never lifted a finger to help her in the home. The burden of raising their children, managing the household, and juggling a million invisible responsibilities all fell on Anna's shoulders. And yet, when their grandchildren were born, Anna once again stepped up, pouring her heart into caring for them while their parents worked tirelessly to build their careers. She saw their struggles and couldn't turn away, offering her time, her energy, and her very life to ensure her grandchildren were raised with love and stability. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. And where was Juan during these years? reclined on the couch, scrolling on his phone, completely oblivious to her exhaustion. Anna cooked, cleaned, and nurtured, all while suppressing her own needs, dreams, and desires. She hoped, prayed even, that Juan would see her struggle and step forward to help. But every time she looked at him, she was met with indifference. His carefree existence, defined by eating, sleeping, and idly passing the days, only deepened her frustration. When Anna finally erupted, unleashing her anger and begging for even a shred of his support, Juan dismissed her pleas. He blamed her for her exhaustion, accusing her of bringing these burdens upon herself. "Why do you create problems where there are none?" he'd say, brushing off her tears. His words cut deep, leaving her feeling unseen, unheard, and utterly alone. In those moments, Anna's resentment boiled over. She wanted nothing more than to kick him out, to reclaim her life and her dignity. When the grandchildren finally grew older and no longer needed her constant care, Anna thought she would finally taste freedom. She planned to embrace the life she had sacrificed for decades, a life filled with travel, relaxation, and the joy of rediscovering herself. But just as she was on the cusp of this new chapter, life dealt her another cruel blow. Juan, after years of heavy smoking, was diagnosed with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD. His health spiraled, landing him in the hospital. And just like that, Anna's dreams were snatched away. Instead of freedom, she found herself shackled once again, this time to a man whose poor choices had become her burden to bear. Anna stands at a crossroads, her heart torn between duty and the longing for liberation. Her life feels like an endless cycle of sacrifice, her dreams forever just out of reach. And yet, she presses on, silently carrying the weight of a love that has long since faded, and a marriage that has become her greatest source of sorrow. Juan had always been a heavy smoker, relying on at least a pack of cigarettes every single day to get through life. From the moment he opened his eyes each morning, the first thing he reached for was a cigarette, lighting it even before brushing his teeth. He refused to spend money on quality tobacco, instead opting for the cheapest, harshest brands available. Anna, his devoted wife, had pleaded with him countless times to cut back on his smoking or at least choose better quality cigarettes to minimize the health risks. But her words fell on deaf ears. Juan, stubborn to a fault, dismissed her concerns, preferring to indulge in his low-quality cigarettes rather than reduce how many he smoked. Over time, the consequences of his choices began to show. His health deteriorated, and his relentless coughing became a nightly ordeal. Each violent cough rattled his chest so deeply that it frightened Anna, leaving her wide awake and anxious. One fateful night, the coughing escalated to an unbearable degree. Juan's face turned beet red, the veins in his forehead bulged, and he struggled to catch his breath. Panicked, Anna called an ambulance. The doctor's grim diagnosis was chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD. He sternly warned Juan that if he didn't quit smoking immediately, his life was in imminent danger. In front of the doctor, Juan nodded solemnly and promised to stop smoking. But as soon as the doctor left the room, his promises dissolved like smoke in the air. He continued to sneak cigarettes, hiding them around the house and slipping out to buy more in secret. Anna, devastated and furious, confronted him repeatedly. "How can you be so careless with your health?" she asked him, tears in her eyes. "Do you even think about me? About us?" But Juan, ever indifferent, replied with a chilling nonchalance. "I've lived long enough. If I can't smoke, life isn't worth living." What hurt Anna the most wasn't just his disregard for his health, it was his utter indifference to hers. The secondhand smoke she was forced to breathe filled their home with toxins, and Anna knew the danger it posed to her. She tried to reason with him, beg him, even threaten him, but nothing worked. The arguments became endless. She resented his selfishness, his unwillingness to change, and the shadow of illness his habits cast over their lives. To make matters worse, Juan's habits robbed him of his former charm. Once, even as a smoker, he'd still carried a freshness about him. But as the years wore on, his breath grew rancid, a toxic combination of stale smoke and decay that made Anna recoil whenever he spoke. His teeth turned an unsightly yellow, and his once occasional laziness about personal hygiene became a constant. Now, he often refused to brush his teeth or bathe, going to bed unwashed and leaving behind an unbearable odor that clung to their shared space. Anna revolted and would have to clean the sheets and pillowcases regularly, scrubbing away the stench that seemed to define their once shared intimacy. At night, Juan's snoring became another source of torment. It was so loud and disruptive that Ana couldn't sleep. She begged him to sleep in the living room, but he flatly refused. "Why should I? This is my bed too," he said, dismissing her need for rest. Whenever Ana tried to take her blanket and retreat to the couch, Juan would stop her, sometimes grabbing her arm or blocking the door. These clashes would escalate into heated arguments, loud enough to wake the neighbors. Desperate for peace, Ana gave up and stayed in the bedroom, but the nights became unbearable. She would lie awake for hours, her body aching from exhaustion, her mind racing with resentment. Her health began to decline, the stress carving lines into her face and sapping her energy. By day, she felt like a shadow of herself, unable to recover from the sleepless nights. With every cough, every argument, every selfish act, her bitterness toward Juan grew deeper. The man she had once loved now felt like a stranger. When they were young, she had dreamed of growing old with him, imagining days filled with laughter and quiet companionship. But now, their shared life felt like a prison. She found herself repulsed by his touch, his voice, even his presence. The smell of his unwashed body, the sight of his discolored teeth, the sound of his snoring, all of it became unbearable. Ana confided in her friends, women who were also trapped in difficult marriages. They shared their frustrations, venting about their husband's selfishness, and for a brief moment, Ana felt understood. But the relief was fleeting. Each night, she returned to the same suffocating reality, her resentment festering like an open wound. She began to wonder if she was the problem, if her inability to accept Juan as he was made her unkind or unloving. But deep down, she knew the truth. She was exhausted, emotionally and physically, by a life that offered no solace. Each day felt heavier than the last, and each night stretched into an eternity of misery. Her dreams of a happy old age with Juan had crumbled into dust, replaced by a stark, unrelenting loneliness. Ana's life had become a cycle of despair, each argument, each sleepless night, each suffocating breath of secondhand smoke adding to the crushing weight of her unhappiness. She felt trapped in a loveless marriage, tethered to a man who cared more about his cigarettes than the woman who had stood by his side for decades. And as she lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, she wondered if she would ever find a way out, or if this was all life had left to offer. The story of Ana, a woman who gradually begins to resent the very man she once loved with unwavering devotion, is not just a singular narrative. It's a poignant reflection of the silent struggles woven into the fabric of countless marriages as the years unfold. It unveils the hidden complexities and profound emotional shifts that often surface in relationships, especially as couples step into their golden years. What begins as a bond filled with promise and shared dreams can sometimes transform into a dynamic weighed down by unmet expectations and unspoken disappointments. But what leads a woman, after dedicating decades of her life to her husband, to feel an unbearable heaviness in the relationship? Why does the spark that once illuminated their union flicker and fade into a cloud of frustration and emotional distancing? One of the most heart-wrenching reasons lies in the glaring inequality in the division of family responsibilities, a source of tension that only deepens over time. In their younger years, women often bear the brunt of the household burden, quietly enduring their husband's bad habits out of a sense of duty, love, or for the sake of their children. They forgive the late nights, the indifference, the selfish choices, and suppress their own needs to hold the family together. But as the years go by, and their health begins to decline, this quiet endurance transforms into an unbearable weight. The additional pressure of caring for grandchildren, managing household demands, or navigating their aging challenges becomes suffocating, especially when their husbands remain disengaged, indifferent and carefree, as if the family burden has no claim on them. Each moment of unreciprocated effort chips away at their spirit, turning love into resentment and closeness into distance. As women grow older, they also experience a profound awakening, a realization of their self-worth and the value of the years they have left. Freed from the whirlwind of child-rearing and career obligations, they find themselves with time to reflect on their lives and confront the sacrifices they made in silence. They begin to see with startling clarity the cracks in their relationships, the flaws in their partners that were once overshadowed by youthful love or simply ignored in the chaos of daily life. The small annoyances that were once tolerable, the thoughtless comments, the lack of support, the habitual selfishness, begin to feel like glaring betrayals of their happiness. This shift doesn't signify that love has entirely faded. Rather, it marks a maturity, a deeper understanding of what truly matters in life. It's not that these women no longer care for their husbands. It's that they care more about themselves, about reclaiming the joy, the peace, and the respect they deserve. This emotional evolution is both a cry for balance and a pursuit of fulfillment that had been deferred for far too long. Anna's story is not merely a tale of growing resentment. It is a poignant reminder of how love, neglected over time, can quietly transform. It's a call to reevaluate not just how we love, but how we share life's burdens, celebrate each other's worth, and honor the commitment that once brought two hearts together. Should Anna consider divorce? Divorce is an emotionally wrenching decision, a crossroads where the heart battles with the mind, especially for someone like Anna, who has invested decades into her marriage. For Anna, it's not merely about walking away from a relationship. It's about confronting a storm of fears and uncertainties, the loneliness that threatens to engulf her, the piercing judgment of society, and the haunting concern about how it might fracture her family. Each of these weighs heavily on her heart, adding layers of complexity to a choice that could redefine her life. This decision isn't simply personal. It feels like an intricate dance between honoring her own needs and shouldering the perceived responsibilities she carries for her children, her community, and even the shared memories built over years of marriage. Yet, within her lies a yearning, a quiet, desperate longing for peace, for the chance to reclaim her happiness and rediscover her purpose, unburdened by the emotional strain she has endured. Divorce may seem like a beacon of hope, a way to break free from the shackles of suffering and rediscover a life of spiritual and emotional liberation. It whispers promises of a fresh start, of days without resentment and nights unshadowed by despair. But before Anna chooses this path, she must ask herself, does divorce truly address the pain in her heart? Or is it a temporary salve that leaves deeper wounds unhealed? The discontent in her marriage may stem from layers of emotional neglect, feelings of abandonment, and the erosion of understanding between her and her partner. A connection once vibrant is now frayed by the relentless wear of time. These wounds, though deep, may not be beyond repair. The cracks in the foundation of their marriage might be mended through sincere, vulnerable communication, where truths are laid bare, fears are confronted, and both partners are given the chance to rebuild what was lost. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Anna must explore the possibility of reigniting the spark that once bound them, of finding the courage to voice her needs and desires openly. This journey may require immense effort from both sides, shifts in attitudes, the dismantling of walls, and a shared commitment to healing. A heartfelt conversation, filled with honesty and vulnerability, could be the key to restoring balance, not only to their marriage but also to Anna's inner peace. Ultimately, Anna's decision should honor her deepest truths. Whether she chooses to fight for her marriage or embrace a new chapter, she must seek the path that promises her not only survival but joy, growth, and fulfillment. For Anna, this is not just about choosing an ending. It's about embracing a future where her soul can finally breathe freely. What can be done to preserve family happiness? Family happiness is a delicate treasure, never guaranteed but lovingly crafted through effort, patience, and devotion. It is not a fixed destination but an evolving journey that requires both partners to nurture joy, trust, and connection as the years pass. The first, and perhaps the most critical step, is to embrace the inevitability of change. Life does not remain static. Our bodies age, our priorities shift, and our personalities evolve. These changes are not enemies to resist but companions to welcome with understanding and forgiveness. Clinging to the expectations of youth only breeds resentment, but by seeing each other through fresh, compassionate eyes, we can rediscover the beauty of love in its maturity. Aging brings its own set of vulnerabilities, from physical insecurities to emotional fears of irrelevance. Acknowledging these unspoken anxieties can deepen the bond between spouses. Empathy, however, cannot thrive without communication, a lifeline that many long-term marriages tragically neglect. Even after decades together, talking openly and listening earnestly are essential. A heartfelt conversation, where worries are expressed, burdens are shared, and suppressed feelings are released, has the power to reignite the connection that once felt unbreakable. But words alone cannot sustain a relationship. Actions must follow. Spending time together, exploring shared interests, and creating new memories are ways to revive the fading spark. When children grow up and the weight of daily responsibilities begins to lift, couples are offered a golden opportunity, a chance to rediscover themselves and each other. Whether it's embarking on long-dreamed-of travels, trying new hobbies, or simply savoring quiet moments hand in hand, These experiences can breathe life into a bond that may have grown weary under the strain of years. Preserving family happiness also requires a profound shift in perspective. The acceptance that perfection is a myth. Marriage, no matter how strong, is not immune to challenges. Conflicts and misunderstandings will arise, but they are not signals of failure. They are opportunities to grow together. Many older women struggle with resentment toward their husbands, a frustration born not of hatred but of unspoken disappointments. Yet divorce is not the only answer. There is immense strength in choosing to stay and work through difficulties, to see love not as a roaring fire but as a tender glow that needs consistent care to keep shining. True family happiness emerges not from an illusion of flawlessness but from the courage to face imperfection with grace and commitment. The story of Anne and John is a poignant example of this enduring effort. Married for over 40 years, their journey has been marked by immense joys and heartbreaking challenges. In their early years, they built a life filled with love and passion, raising children and navigating the chaos of family life with hope. But as the years passed and their children left to forge their paths, the silence of an empty nest brought unspoken tensions to the surface. The love that once felt effortless now seemed distant, hidden beneath years of routine and unresolved emotions. Yet Anne and John did not give up. They chose to confront their struggles together, taking small but meaningful steps to rebuild their connection. Through late-night conversations filled with tears and laughter, they rediscovered the depth of their bond. By setting aside time for each other, whether it was walking through a park, revisiting old memories, or simply sitting in comfortable silence, they learned that love is not always grand gestures but often quiet, enduring companionship. Their journey reminds us all that family happiness is not a gift but a responsibility, one that requires forgiveness, effort, and a willingness to grow. And in John's story is not just about marriage. It is a testament to the resilience of love and the profound beauty of choosing each other again and again, even in the face of life's inevitable changes. Let their example inspire us to cherish the relationships that matter most, to see challenges not as barriers but as bridges to deeper understanding, and to embrace the transformative power of care, patience, and hope. The early days of Anne and John's relationship felt like a dream, a love story straight out of a fairy tale. They had met at a school dance, their laughter echoing as they realized how perfectly they fit together. John, an ambitious young engineer with big dreams, was captivated by Anne's warmth and her passion for education, and in turn, found comfort and excitement in John's vision for the future. Together, they built a life filled with promise, a home filled with love, and eventually, the joyful chaos of 2 children. Their early years of marriage were golden. Every moment seemed magical: family picnics under the sun, bedtime stories whispered in their children's room, and vacations where laughter rang louder than any worry. Anne had put her career dreams on hold to create a nurturing home, and John worked tirelessly to provide. It was a partnership built on shared dreams, love, and mutual sacrifice. The house they built together was not just bricks and mortar, it was a sanctuary of love and warmth. But as the years passed, the laughter in their home began to fade. The children, Jack and Emily, grew up and moved on to chase their dreams, leaving behind a deafening silence. Jack went off to college, full of hope and ambition, while Emily found work in a distant city. What was once a home filled with noise, energy, and joy transformed into a quiet, echoing emptiness. Anne felt the change more deeply than she could have ever imagined. The same walls that once symbolized safety and love now seemed to close in around her, reminding her of the loneliness she couldn't escape. She had given everything to her family, her time, her energy, her dreams, and now, she felt forgotten in the very space she had worked so hard to make a home. John, on the other hand, seemed to adapt differently. After retiring, he found solace in gardening. The once empty backyard became his canvas, and he poured all his energy into tending the flowers and plants. The garden flourished under his care, a vibrant display of colors and life, but Anne felt like an outsider looking in, longing for that same attention and care. What hurt the most wasn't John's newfound hobby but the growing emotional distance it created between them. While John immersed himself in his garden, Anne found herself retreating further into loneliness. She tried to reach out, suggesting they spend more time together, asking for his help with household tasks, or simply sitting beside him in the garden. But her efforts were met with indifference or forgotten promises. Every moment she spent watching him nurture his plants only reminded her of the love and attention she no longer received. Anne's loneliness began to weigh on her heart like an unbearable burden. One evening, in a last-ditch effort to rekindle their connection, She prepared an elaborate dinner with all of John's favorite dishes. She meticulously set the table, hoping it would spark a conversation or at least a moment of shared joy. But when John came home, he barely glanced at the food before disappearing back into the garden. Sitting at the table, staring at the untouched meal, Anne's heart broke a little more. She had poured every ounce of herself into that dinner, into their relationship, and yet it felt like nothing she did could bridge the growing chasm between them. Her eyes welled with tears, but she swallowed her pain, unwilling to let it spill out into words. Resentment began to take root in her heart, much like the flowers in John's garden. As the days turned into weeks, Anne's silence grew heavier. She felt like a ghost in her own home, her presence acknowledged but never truly seen. The love that once defined their lives seemed to wither, leaving her to wonder if John even noticed the changes in her. The sadness in her eyes, the unspoken hurt in her voice, the aching loneliness in her heart. Every passing day felt like a reminder of what they had lost, and she wondered if it was too late to find their way back to each other. Once Anne fell gravely ill, her body weakened and confined her to bed. She lay there, vulnerable and yearning for comfort, silently hoping her husband, John, would notice her struggle and offer a tender hand. But John seemed completely oblivious. He followed his usual routine, stepping out to his garden at dawn, absorbed in his world of soil and plants. Occasionally, he would come into the house for a quick drink, his presence fleeting and detached. As the hours stretched on and the shadows of evening grew, Anne remained alone, her body aching and her heart heavier than ever. It wasn't until John prepared for bed that Anne, her voice frail and trembling, asked him, "Did you even realize I've been sick all day?" Startled, John glanced at her, his expression a mixture of confusion and indifference. "Oh, why didn't you tell me earlier?" he replied nonchalantly before turning back to his nightly routine. He offered no words of comfort, no gesture of care. It was as if her suffering hadn't even registered in his world. At that moment, Anne's heart shattered. The pain she felt wasn't just from her illness. It was the deep, soul-wrenching ache of being unseen and unloved by the man she once considered her life partner. Over time, Anne began to realize the devastating truth. Her marriage had become a hollow shell. The intimacy, the shared dreams, and the tender care that once defined their bond had vanished. Though they continued to live under the same roof, their connection was as distant as two stars in separate galaxies. She found herself drowning in an ocean of loneliness, yearning for the companionship and emotional warmth that John no longer seemed capable of providing. Desperate to reclaim a sense of purpose and joy, and resolved to make a change. One crisp afternoon, during a walk in the nearby park, she noticed a group of women painting beneath the sprawling branches of an ancient oak tree. Their laughter and vibrant canvases caught her attention, stirring something deep within her. The women, sensing her curiosity, invited her to join them. At first, Anne hesitated. It had been years since she'd held a paintbrush, and doubt clouded her mind. But something urged her forward, a whisper of hope she couldn't ignore. As she tentatively dipped her brush into the paint for the first time in decades, and felt a flicker of something she hadn't experienced in years: freedom. With every stroke, she poured out her emotions, turning her anguish and longing into colors and shapes. Her artwork became a reflection of her inner world, a canvas for the unspoken words and unexpressed feelings that had weighed her down. What started as a hesitant step soon became her sanctuary. The painting sessions under the trees were no longer just a pastime, they were her lifeline. Each evening, Anne returned home with her spirit lifted, her heart brimming with a newfound joy. Yet, despite the light slowly returning to her eyes, John remained indifferent. Immersed in his garden, he never once asked about the glow on her face or the paint-stained hands that held evidence of her transformation. His silence was deafening, his detachment a constant reminder of the chasm that now separated them. Still, Anne painted. With every masterpiece, she reclaimed pieces of herself that she thought she had lost. And though her marriage remained a space in her life, her art became a source of healing, a way to rediscover the strength and beauty within her soul. While John's absence continued to sting, Anne learned that even in solitude, she could create something breathtakingly beautiful. A life filled with color, creativity, and the courage to embrace herself once again. One evening, after months of feeling invisible in her own home, Anne gathered her courage to have a heartfelt conversation with John. Sitting at the dimly lit dining table, she felt the weight of her emotions pressing down on her, threatening to spill over. With a trembling voice, she began, "Do you even realize how far apart we've drifted?" Her words hung in the air, heavy with the pain and longing she had bottled up for so long. John, startled by her vulnerability, paused, searching her eyes for understanding. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, he truly saw her, not just his wife, but a woman aching to be noticed. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. As and opened up, tears welled in her eyes as she recounted the countless moments she felt abandoned in their marriage. She spoke of how she would ask him for help around the house, only to be met with empty promises as his attention remained firmly fixed on his plants. She relived the anguish of being gravely ill while John barely noticed, his neglect cutting her deeper than she ever thought possible. Each word she uttered carried the weight of her loneliness, and John could feel the cracks in their marriage widening with every revelation. John sat silently, his heart sinking with each painful memory she shared. The realization hit him like a wave. His actions, seemingly insignificant to him, had caused wounds that and carried silently for years. Guilt swirled within him as he mustered the courage to speak. And he began, his voice breaking, "I had no idea. I've been so selfish. I've been so lost in my little world that I didn't see how much I was hurting you. I'm sorry for everything. You didn't deserve to feel this way." That night marked a turning point in their lives. For the first time in years, John truly listened, not just with his ears but with his heart. He vowed to make amends, to show and that she was his priority, not an afterthought. True to his word, he began making changes, however small they seemed at first. John made a deliberate effort to spend more time with and, not just being physically present but emotionally invested. He joined her painting class, despite his lack of artistic skill, because he wanted to be a part of her world, to understand her joys and passions. What started as a hesitant effort soon blossomed into moments of laughter and togetherness, as they painted side by side. The canvases they created may not have been masterpieces, but they became symbols of their renewed bond. John didn't stop there. He planned weekend picnics reminiscent of their younger days, venturing to parks, quaint towns, and hidden restaurants. These adventures breathed new life into their marriage, allowing them to rediscover the love that had once burned so brightly. And, who had felt invisible for so long, now felt cherished and seen. For John, it was a revelation, realizing that love required constant care and attention, much like the plants he had tended so obsessively. And also came to an important realization. She understood that waiting silently for change wasn't enough. Sometimes, love demanded bravery and vulnerability. By opening her heart to John, she allowed him the chance to see her pain and respond with compassion. Together, they grew, not by ignoring their struggles but by confronting them head-on. Their story is a testament to the resilience of love and the power of communication. After more than 40 years of marriage, Anne and John proved that it's never too late to mend what's broken. They learned that love is not static. It requires patience, understanding, and, above all, a willingness to grow together. Life may not always be easy, but their journey showed that even in the later chapters of life, love can be reignited. With time and effort, Anne and John transformed their marriage into something even more beautiful than before, proving that it's never too late to rewrite your love story. As we come to the end of Anne and John's heartfelt journey, it's clear that love and connection thrive when nurtured with patience, communication, and a willingness to grow together. Their story reminds us that even in the most challenging moments, it's never too late to rebuild bridges and rediscover joy in our relationships. Now, we'd love to hear from you. What stood out to you most in their story? What's one lesson you've learned from this video that you'll bring into your own life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We're eager to read your insights. If you found this story meaningful, please leave a comment, like, share, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiring content. Together, let's continue learning, growing, and making every moment count. Thank you for watching.